Hello, YouTube. This is Mike. It's been a long time since I've been on this channel. It is in the middle of the night, so I know probably nobody's going to come on to the live stream. But yeah, I've just been very caught up in my own life and all of the really, really intense, crazy things that are going on in the world and are still going on. So I'm still, if I'm being straight with you, I'm still not feeling very comfortable at the moment. But one of the things that helps me is, doing something of service. Doing something fun, doing something of service, and this is one of the things that I do for that is this channel. So, what is the title of this video? Why it's a waste of time to argue with a borderline, I think is what I said. And yeah, so first, before we go any further, this video and this channel is called The 4 Things That Heal BPD and NPD Abuse. So the primary intended target of these videos is somebody who does not suffer from any kind of personality disorder, who has been or is currently in a relationship with somebody who suffers from toxic borderline personality disorder and or NPD. And I share with you what I did to completely heal from that relationship. So I am not a mental health professional. I am not a psychologist, psychiatrist. I'm not even a licensed counselor. So what I'm really doing is I'm sharing my experience, what worked for me. And if you have some other way that works for you, by all means do whatever the hell it is. I can only tell you what I know works for me. So those 4 things, the name of this channel, the 4 things that heal BPD and NPD abuse. If you look on the chat here, you'll see number 1, go full no contact. That means not just avoiding contacting your BPD, it means breaking all of the possible methods of communication. Getting rid of phone numbers, blocking phones, email, Facebook. In other words, make it impossible. Do whatever you can. If you're married or you've got kids, then you only go through a lawyer. You're like, a lawyer's expensive? Well, yeah, you have to take responsibility. You chose to have a child with somebody whom you now know has a severe mental illness. So if it's not working out, you go through a lawyer. That way you don't have to ever deal with it, go back and forth. So you go full no contact. Number 2, you work all 12 steps of CODA.org. Actually, I don't care which 12-step group you work with. That one is for codependence. But any 12-step group will do. If you're an alcoholic, you're a drug addict, you're a gambling addict, you're a porn addict, you're a sex addict, you're, whatever it is. If you're a relationship addict, that's what CODA is, CODA.org. You work all 12 steps with a sponsor. So that means you have to do it with somebody else who's done it, or at least has a little more experience than you. And that makes you accountable to somebody else. So you're not just doing it in your head. Because the truth is, you look at those 12 steps and you think, oh, I've already done those, but you haven't. Once you actually do it with somebody, you find out, oh, I actually haven't done these before. So number 2 is you work all 12 steps of whichever anonymous program you want with a sponsor, and then you seek to sponsor somebody else. That's how it works. 12 steps is something that you constantly give away. It doesn't work. It's not like, you take one pill and it's over. Number 3, you work with a psychologist. So to me, the most powerful combination that creates the healing, because let's be very clear, Codependence, which is if you've been in a relationship with somebody who has a cluster B personality disorder, by definition, you are a codependent. People get bent out of shape over the word dependent, and they say, I'm not dependent on anybody, and that's not what that word means. You know, we could get into that. I've given my definition of it numerous times, but you know, one thing we'll both agree on is that if you've been in a relationship with a borderline, you have had to go above and beyond what is normal in order to keep the relationship going. You have given away your time, your energy, your identity, right? Because you'll go on and on telling me for pages and pages all the things you've done for them. Why don't they love me? So if you've given more than what is normal, and especially just to keep the relationship from falling apart, then that by definition is a codependent dynamic. You want to say you're not codependent? Fine. You've definitely been in a codependent dynamic. And in my experience with this, codependence is incredibly challenging to overcome. And I'll be honest, most codependents don't. They get on a hamster wheel and they never get off it. Even if they're not in a relationship, they're running, for instance, just let me be, honest with you about it. How many of you listening to me still ruminate over your ex? How many of you still have rage and anger? And I would understand if you did. Have resentment towards them. How many of you vacillate between hating them and wishing you could have them back? Do you dream about the sex? Do you dream about the look in their eyes when they loved you? Do you go over and over in your head the things that you should have said, or what were the things that you could have done to have kept them from splitting on you or leaving you or cheating on you? If any of that happens on any level, you're still on the hamster wheel. You're not completely healed from that relationship. So what I guarantee people on this channel, and it is a guarantee, if you do the 4 things as I am sharing with you, with everything that you have, the one thing I guarantee you with is that some point you will completely heal from that relationship. That's the only thing I can guarantee you. I can't tell you when. I can't tell you that anything else will get better in your life, although I'm sure many other things will, but you'll definitely have other things that won't go away, but you can be healed of that one relationship. You can never have to think about that person ever again. You can never have to say to yourself, why did they do that? And I wish she had said this, and I wish I could have done that. If she was here right now, and I wonder what she's doing, I wonder who she's with. If you want to be completely free of that, those 4 things are the way. So after you work with a psychologist and you're working the 12 steps with a sponsor, the 4th thing is daily meditation. And that really is just step 11 of the 12 steps. But it's an important aspect. So as you can guess, those 4 things are the things that I did and continue to do. And I am completely healed of that relationship. I got all kinds of other problems. I got no shortage of other problems. Right now, I've got all kinds of crazy problems going on. But she's not one of them. All right, so I do want to look at some comments. I do. I like comments because if somebody leaves a comment that I want to respond to, or that I either understand or sorry, I got distracted by something. If I see a comment that I have a strong reaction to, or that I connect with or agree with, then I'm not the only person, and I think it's worth talking about. So let me be clear, any borderlines watching me, I can't say NPD because I don't really know enough about it to say. I don't know if narcissists, if they have a way of healing, if they can heal. Perhaps talk to Sam Vaknin. He has a method out of NPD. But I do believe that borderlines can recover. By recover, what I mean is that they can get to a place where they can monitor and change their behavior. So they can get into a state of recovery. And I do believe that borderlines have the ability, at least some of them, to have loving, nurturing relationships. And borderline personality disorder is definitely a spectrum. So what is true about one might not be true about others in terms of all kinds of things. There are some borderlines who I don't know will ever be able to heal. My experience with some are, I just don't know how they possibly can. They've never shown any possibility of being able to function in any kind of connection without being damaging. But I have run into a few who have convinced me that they do a lot of work and that they're able to have healthy, loving relationships. So let me be clear about that. I do not stigmatize borderlines. Not all borderlines agree with that because I say things that they feel attacked on. They feel stigmatized. I will make blanket statements about borderlines. I will share my interpretation of what I think is going on with them. I will try and get in their head. Because the truth is, I don't think I'm that far from a borderline in terms of my internal, family of origin stuff. I know I don't have a personality disorder because I don't dissociate. I don't have time lapses. I don't confabulate. The kinds of things that borderlines do which show that there's something not right upstairs. I don't have that. And I'm able to commit and stay in relationships without, doing the things that borderlines do. But in terms of, coming right up to the line, I get pretty close to it. At least I think I do. I could be wrong. So I think I'm pretty good at guessing what's going on inside their minds. And there's been no shortage of borderlines who have said, oh my God, you totally get me. So I'm going to do all that kind of stuff, and borderlines might get their feelings hurt, and they might get upset, and they might disagree. And it is not my intention, nor is it my feeling, to stigmatize borderlines at all. In fact, if I... that's changing at the moment because of all the stuff going on. But if I could snap my fingers and heal one problem, one health problem in the world, it would be BPD. Because I do believe that borderlines suffer horrifically. And I think that what they have to live with is absolutely, as close as a person can get without dying from the emotional and psychological stress. So, just borderlines out there, because I'm going to say some things you might not like hearing, but before I get to that, let me just identify with you and educate others if you've been with a borderline and you want to know why do they do the things that they do. First off, there's no justification. So there's a difference between explaining something and justifying something. There is an explanation for their behavior. There's no justification for the damage that they cause. So while there's no justification for the damage that anybody causes anybody else, the reason is that little infants, the thing that little infants need the most is love and attention and interaction. There's been no shortage of experiments throughout history where people have, and this goes back to the Middle Ages. There was some English king that wanted to figure out if Hebrew was the original human language. And so he decided in his wisdom that he was going to have an experiment with a bunch of little babies, I think they were orphans, and he wasn't going to let anybody communicate with them, and then their first words would let you know what the original language of human beings was, right? Genius, right? So he took some nuns and I don't know how many infants and put them on an island and told the nuns, you cannot talk to the child, you cannot interact with the child, you cannot touch the child unless you're wiping its ass or feeding it. Other than that, you can have no contact with the child. They cry, whatever it is, you cannot interact with them. And every single one of those babies died. So you have to understand that when an infant does not get, connection, does not get love, or it gets confusing, or is shamed, and I think neglect is probably the biggest one. When an infant is neglected chronically, it literally threatens their life. So a borderline is an infant that came this close to dying and got just enough interaction to keep them from dying from a lack of love. It's horrific. It's a horrific thing that never goes away for them. So, borderlines listening to me, I'm not judging or stigmatizing anything that goes on. I can't even imagine, the strength it takes just to make it through from one day to the next. Having said that, as horrible as it is to be a borderline, if you're with a borderline who doesn't have control over their symptoms, it is equally as horrible for the other person. So, having said that, let me now read some comments. So there's been somebody here who really wants to give me what for. So the latest one is, let's see, on my video, loving a borderline, you do not understand their motives, and borderlines, what is it? Borderlines do, sorry, let me just read the whole title of my video. My apologies for babbling. It's been, I've had some pretty intense stuff going on. It is, gosh, dang it. Anyway, borderlines, sorry, I'm not going to waste my time trying to figure that out. Title of the title was, you do not understand borderlines, something like that. Sorry, I lost the comment. This is somebody who apparently is a borderline in a relationship and does not agree with me, which is perfectly fine. You won't hurt my feelings in the slightest if you disagree with me. I have no need to be correct, by the way. None. Not on this channel. I have no need to be correct. So this person says, your videos do more to harm those with BPD than help people who got hurt in relationships with unwell persons. So my response to that is, these videos aren't meant for people with BPD. So if there's anything I do or say that's hurtful to you, I support you in not watching my channel. I don't need to have viewers just for the sake of having viewers. My purpose for these videos is to help people that are on the other side of this relationship. Having said that, this is pretty common. This is common with both borderlines, narcissists, and with codependents, and it's called projection. Which is, the truth is, I don't even know who you are. I mean, I've seen your name. If somebody's watching this video and they don't comment, I won't even know you exist. So if I say borderlines X, Y, and Z, even though you happen to be a borderline, I'm not saying anything about you. I don't even know you. So I can't possibly harm you with anything. And this is key to recovery for both codependents and borderlines, because individuation, which is the main thing I was describing, when an infant does not get interaction from a primary caregiver, they do not individuate. So let's go through the process of individuation. By the way, that's what all psychology is, whether you're, you've got crazy, lunatic, off the wall, mental illness, or if you've just got somebody who's, got some emotional issues. These people go to a psychologist, they go to a therapist, they go to a counselor, they go to a shaman, they go to a priest, they go to a healer. They are all seeking the same thing, which is individuation. Individuation is the mindset that says, I'm not invulnerable to you. If you do something or say something that hurts me, it hurts me or it angers me. But I have enough self-directed love that I know who I am. And so if you say something to an individuated person and you call them horrible names, they will go, wow, that's really hurtful, or that really angers me. But you know what? I know who I am, and I'm sorry that you feel that way about me. How that happens is when the infant, have you seen mothers with little infants, and the infant's looking up at the mother, and the infant makes a noise. Ah, ga, ga. Mom goes, ah, ga, ga, ga. When mom does that, when mom mirrors back, and you'll see that, the little kid will go, ah, ga, 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 and then mom will say it, and you'll see them process it. They stop, and they process it. You can see them processing. That was just me. They were just reflecting me. And then that goes in there, and then they go, oh, this is a game. And they'll make another noise, and mom will make a noise. And then mom will mimic the child. This is instinctual. Because what it does is you are reflecting back to the infant that they exist, number one. Borderlines, if you notice this, if you talk to them, many of them will say, I don't even know if I exist. So the mother lets the child know, you exist, I see you. And I'm responding to your sound. Your sound is unique. What you do is unique. You are a unique individual in this new, world you've come into. You're an individual. And then the child has all different kinds of physical needs, right? Child needs to poop, pee, eat, is cold, right? And the infant will have all kinds of emotions. They will get happy, they will get sad, they will get angry, they will scream, cry. And as long as they're an infant, the mother, a true mother, tells the infant with her behavior, you have value simply because you exist. You have angry feelings right now. Good for you. Your feelings give you value. You're sad, you're crying. Good for you. I love you. You're whatever it is. Whatever the baby's doing, that's why moms hold babies while they scream and they cry. Because the message is, you don't have to do anything. Just the fact that you have feelings, that you have emotions, that you have sensations, these give you value. And because of that, I love you. I don't love you for what you do for me. I love you simply because you're alive and you're having an experience. Whatever, even if it's negative or positive, I love you for that. And so this experience, this then moves into when they become a toddler, and then they learn to individuate and the terrible twos, and then they get past toddlerhood. And then what happens is you start putting boundaries down, right? When they become a toddler, you start telling them no, and they don't like being told no. But they can tolerate it because they have now the ability to create individuation, because then the second half of individuation is you must learn how to be disappointed. You must learn how not to get what you want. You must learn how to hear and experience things that you don't like. You must learn how to be rejected when mommy doesn't want to, pick you up right now. And these disappointments are earth-shattering. And so in order to progress beyond that, the toddler has to go in and say, it's okay that I have these feelings, and I'll be okay. And then that's why when you're an adult, somebody yells at you or screams at you, you say, I'm really sorry if I've done something to offend you or hurt you. But I know that I didn't mean anything by that. Or they break up with you. I'm really sad that you broke up with me, but I'll be okay because I know who I am. Singers who are successful, like on, what is that show? American Idol, for example. I haven't watched it in years, but I remember more than once, you saw the really talented, the singer that brought so much emotion that would bring people to tears and make their skin tingle because of the just the raw emotion and beauty and their genius. And then more often than not, they had an alcoholic mother or a drug addict mother that died, and that's what created all of the intense emotions, and that's how they release it. And you'll see as the competition is going, that person starts to become the favorite, and the judges will be like, if you keep doing that, you're going to win. You're my favorite. I'm just being straight with you. And then when it comes to for the final performances, they screw up. They forget the words. Something happens, and the judges will be like, I really wanted, if you had brought to this what you've brought, I would have given it to you, but I can't. You forgot that whole thing, or you stopped the song, or whatever it was. And the person who's perhaps mediocre, but very passionate and very determined, and they end up winning, even though they're not the best. But in the audience, mom, dad, sister, and brother will be there with cards saying, "We love you, you're the best." And I went, oh, that's why. Because that person has an introjection. Inside of them is their mom and their dad and their friends and their family constantly telling them, you're the best. When they make a mistake, the family's in the head going, that's okay, that's okay. Dust yourself off. You can totally do this. Whereas the kid whose mom was a drug addict that died when he was 14, and what's happening is that when he goes up to win, he's got an introjected, either non-existent mother or whatever shame, and he tells himself, you can't do it, you're not worthy enough. So he doesn't have any individuation. So the projection here from this guy is that he says to me, even though I don't know him, even though I've never emailed him, talked to him, I don't even know anything about him. According to him, I do more harm to him than I do to help those who need to recover. So there's a lot of narcissism in that, first and foremost. It's a projection in that, he's telling me that I'm causing everybody harm, him and people who are trying to recover. And of course, that's a projection. Whether or not this person is hurtful to other people, I don't know. But at the very least, on an unconscious level, he feels that he might be. And so that's intolerable for him, so he projects onto me that I'm not only not helping you, but I'm hurting everybody else. So this is projection. He has another comment here, which we can talk about. But again, here's the one thing. Let me just share something that I find very interesting. With the borderlines who want to fight with me. And by the way, not all of them do. Some of them say, you're very harsh, you're very direct, but we need to hear it. You're absolutely right. We need, so some of them, again, I'm not here to help borderlines. That's not my job. Some of them, for whatever reason, like what I do. You can talk to them why. But a lot of borderlines don't. I can understand that. I wouldn't want to be told that, my behavior was really hurtful and horrible. I wouldn't want to hear that either. And I wouldn't want to hear somebody say, the best thing you can do for a borderline is to go no contact, or a toxic borderline is to go no contact. By the way, what I mean by toxic is somebody who is incapable of monitoring their behavior, who cannot prevent from being hurtful. That's toxic. Just that simple. And what I find interesting about the comments from those types of borderlines is that there's zero empathy for me or for others. Zero empathy. So I see that here. I see in this person has missed the whole point of this channel, which is I am here to only help people that need it. Or want it, I should say. Only helping those people who've been in relationships and have been completely destroyed. My only goal is to be helpful to them and to speak to them and to reflect back to them in ways that they can't get anywhere else. And it shows a complete lack of empathy. So this is telling. This, if he's doing that with somebody he doesn't know, I don't know this for a fact, but my logical conclusion is that he probably does that in intimate relationships. Because if he were to come on, as many borderlines have done, and said, you're right, we borderlines can be very hurtful, and although I have learned a lot and grown a lot, and I now know how to manage my symptoms, I can see how in the past I was very hurtful. Or some borderlines will say, I'm aware that I'm not capable of handling my symptoms, and for that reason I can't be in relationships because I know I'm going to hurt somebody. So that's somebody who's actually in a very powerful process of individuation. And they have empathy. They have empathy for themselves because they acknowledge that they have a shortcoming, which is way of having self-love. Self-empathy is to go, I'm doing my best, and this is where I fail, and I get it. And I get why it needs to be changed, and I'm doing the best I can. That's self-empathy. But it also shows empathy for others. And this is the thing about empathy. You can't have empathy for other people without having empathy for yourself. And you can't have true empathy for yourself without also having empathy for other people. So if you are presenting yourself in a defensive way, which looks like you have self-empathy, but it's really not, and in the process of defending yourself, you unconsciously show that you have zero empathy for anybody else, then now you get it. That's the issue. So the thing that's interesting is that the borderlines that want to attack me don't for a moment stop to acknowledge what I went through in order to even have the idea to make this channel. And if you go back to my first videos, you'll see, if you go back chronologically, you'll see how messed up I was. I was in a lot of pain. And I was doing everything in my power to keep from, blowing my brains out. So here we see a complete lack of empathy. Because he's not even acknowledging why I started the channel. And all he can do is tell me that just by me making this video, I'm harming him, even though nobody's forcing him to watch my videos. He could very easily watch a video from a psychologist or another borderline that could be very healing and helpful for him. He doesn't have to watch my channel. So he says, as borderlines, we face stigma from the media, from people who don't understand the disorder, and even from mental health professionals. So let's talk about stigma for a moment. Stigma is when you judge somebody for a superficial generalization without any empathy. So racism is a good example. You don't like Irish people. Those Irish people, they're just a bunch of drunks and thieves, and all they do is go to bars and get drunk and fight and have kids. You can't trust those damn Irish. that would be stigmatizing somebody for something completely superficial. Borderline personality disorder is a bunch of different things, and there's a spectrum, and not all borderlines are the same, but there are some things about borderline personality disorder that all borderlines share. And in terms of intimate romantic relationships, which in my experience is when the challenges of being a borderline are most explosively toxic, is inside intimate relationships. It's the intimacy that pushes the buttons that makes them act in really destructive ways to themselves and to others. If you're a borderline, you split, and splitting is it is not the same as arguing. It's not the same as being mean. It's not the same as having a bad day. It's not the same as having a disagreement or having an up and down. A split is a very specific thing that does not happen with people who don't have these kinds of personality disorders. A split is when the borderline, on a dime, will go from loving you to hating you. And they will have a justification. They will have a reason in their mind why they're doing it. And the reason could be anything. But it won't be accurate. There won't be any truth to it. So ups and downs, disagreements is about objective reality. Somebody wants to go to Disneyland for vacation and you want to go to Vegas. Although Vegas is kind of like Disneyland now. And so you fight over that. That's a disagreement. But it's a disagreement based on objective reality. When you're with, and this is my, I know I'm not the only person that has this experience. You're out taking your borderline out to dinner and you're having this beautiful, wonderful conversation, loving connection, and you yawn and you look at your watch, and the next thing you know, your borderline is throwing her silverware at you and saying, I can't believe that you are doing this to me. You've been trying to destroy me. And then they, off in a huff, they run off into the street and slash your tires. That's a split. That's not somebody having a disagreement or an up and down, and it's them responding to their fear of intimacy on such an extreme level that they do something really destructive. Now, it doesn't have to be that big. It can be disappearing. You go out on a date, or you have the best lovemaking of your life, or you offer to marry them. Something happens, you connect on a really close level, and then the next day you get the text. I'm sorry, I can't be with you. You're dangerous and I can't have anything to do with you. It's not your fault. I just don't feel safe around you. And then they disappear on you. Or sometimes you're just there and they just disappear. You don't even know what's happening. You're perfectly fine, and then next thing you know, they're gone. Their clothes are gone. They're gone. Try calling them. They've blocked the phone. You can't find them. Those are things that borderlines do. Those are unique to borderline personality disorder. All borderlines do something that has to do with that. Some kind of splitting, whether it's external or whether it's muted, whether it's so-called quiet, which, by the way, is nonsense. It doesn't matter. If that's something that you do, by definition, you are a borderline. If you don't do those things, then the argument could be made that you're not a borderline. So stigma isn't me stigmatizing somebody because they have some psychological diagnosis. I could care less. Diagnoses, they're words. They don't mean anything to me. If you've been diagnosed a psychopathic borderline, but you consistently are loving and kind and dependable, I don't care. I'm not going to judge you for that. Stigma is about what you do. That's it. And the only thing that people care about, borderlines, if you're listening, the only thing that people care about is how you treat them. That's it. So when you split on somebody, you slash their tires, you kill their kitten, whatever it is that you do, and we all know you can't help it. It's not a question of whether or not we don't understand that you can't help that, or that you don't even remember that you did it. It's not that we don't understand that. It's that knowing that you can't help it doesn't change the fact that it is horrifically damaging to us. I was talking with somebody on here, and I said something to that effect. I said, again, a very common argument from the borderlines is, no, we do. We know exactly, and you can't imagine the guilt that we feel. And in all honesty, I do have tremendous empathy for that. I know how painful that is. And I know how painful it must be to know what you've done, and you've done it again. And that, you can't go back, and, if you could go back in time, you would have done something different. I understand how painful that is. But I said, it's like, let's say your neighbor, in a rage comes over and kills your cat, and then feels really guilty about it a day later. It's really hard to just tell your neighbor, you know what, I know you didn't mean it, never mind. Because your cat is dead. The cat that you loved, that you raised from a kitten, is dead. And no amount of guilt from your neighbor is going to change that. And so the behavior extremes of borderline personality disorder, when you're on the other side of it, is so damaging that even if the borderline wakes up the next day and realizes what they did and has tremendous guilt and is beating themselves up and, tearing themselves apart, even feeling suicidal because of it, it won't make the pain go away. Because there's a difference between that. And this is the stigma. The stigma isn't that you've got BPD. It's the behavior. So if you've been diagnosed with BPD and you have done whatever work you've done and you have the ability to not act on it, I'm going to be the first one to not care. In fact, I will go out of my way to thank you for constantly being there for me, for being dependable, for loving me, and for, acting lovingly toward me when I know you don't want to. I will reward you for that. Not only will I not stigmatize you for it, I will reward you for loving me. This is how it works. So the stigma of BPD isn't just because there's a diagnosis. There's a behavior that goes along with it that if you don't do that, if your message is, I've been diagnosed with BPD, but I don't do that to people, then by definition, you're not a borderline. You may have something else going on. But if you're a borderline, the one thing you're going to have in common is in intimate relationships, at the very least, you're going to want to act out destructively. So saying as borderlines, we face stigma from the media, from people who don't understand the disorder, and even from mental health professionals. The stigma is, if it's really you, like you have stigma, I'm not going to say that this doesn't happen. I can imagine that there are people who are going to go, oh my God, you're a borderline, I want nothing to do with you. And I've got to be honest, if I was dating some woman and she told me I have borderline personality disorder, I would say, well, I have to really get to know you before I even make myself in any way, because I've been there. So I can understand that. There is a stigma, but it doesn't come from nowhere. And to not understand what the effect is of your behavior shows zero empathy. And that's really the problem. And so there's no empathy here. There's a lot of projection and no empathy. He says, you say borderline relationships are toxic. I do say that, but I also say quite often, as I've said in this channel, that, hey, if a borderline can get help and monitor his or her behavior, then they are capable of having loving, healthy relationships. And if you, lots of times I'll say as a disclaimer, if you're a borderline and you have a great relationship and you love somebody and you're able to act lovingly towards them, then I'm obviously not talking about you. I'm only talking about the toxic borderlines. You obviously aren't toxic. He says, I've been with my wife 10 years and we, like all couples, have faced ups and downs, but we are happy. What is toxic is people like you who get hurt by one woman with mental health problems and spread these hurtful blanket statements about people who suffer this disorder. So again, it shows a lack, there's a lack of empathy there. I mean, there's a lot of personal attacks on me. He doesn't know me, and he's making judgments about me, which don't show any empathy. He's not saying, I'm really sorry that you got hurt and I can understand and I want to apply that to myself and I hope I don't do that. That would show empathy. That would show individuation. That would show the ability to, I mean, it would show things that I strive for in myself to do, to be able to say, yeah, I can see how that would be hurtful. I hope that I don't do that, but I can see that I have that tendency and I'm going to work on that. So he's projecting himself as though he doesn't do this, he doesn't have any problems, and he is happy he doesn't hurt his wife of 10 years. And it's my fault that he has a stigma, and it's my fault that he feels bad. As all this stuff is coming. All of the underlying, all of that comes from a lack of empathy, which is part of being a borderline. So, as you may know, the modern understanding of borderline personality disorder, and I didn't make this up, but I definitely agree with it. The modern understanding of borderline personality disorder is that it is a form of narcissistic personality disorder. So borderlines will come on and they'll say, you're wrong, I'm not a narcissist, I have empathy. But empathy, I disagree with a lot of psychologists who I think minimize this. And I think actually psychologists sort of curse both narcissists and borderlines with a superficial understanding of empathy. Because you'll hear psychologists and psychiatrists say, oh, the difference is that narcissists have no empathy and they cannot. They don't have the ability to empathize with others. And that, I think, is a curse. I think that puts people in a position who, if they don't feel something or if they're not conscious of having a feeling, they'll go, well, that guy just told me I can't do it, so who gives a crap? I've heard for some narcissists that seek therapy that sometimes they start to make progress because they want to. They don't, well, not all of them, but some of them want to be good people and they don't want to hurt others, and they start to make progress. And then what ends up happening is that they get to that place of, a lack of feeling, and they go, I can't feel anything, so I'm going to stop trying. And it's sad because I think psychologists and psychiatrists sort of curse them by telling them, only if you have feelings can you be constructive. Only if you have the feeling of empathy can you act on it. That's the message of that. So when a narcissist doesn't, can't muster up an empathic feeling, then they just give up and they do what they know how to do. Borderlines, on the other hand, as they will tell me quite often, they'll say, you're wrong. I'm not a narcissist. I'm not a secondary psychopath. I have empathy. In fact, I have so much empathy for others, I want to kill myself. Or something along those lines. And that's not empathy either. Empathy isn't just a feeling. It's great if you have a feeling. But the idea is that that empathetic feeling drives you to take an action. But more so, it drives you to make a commitment to take that action from here going forward, whether you want to or not. This is what a marriage vow is. Ideally, you're sitting there and I betrothed myself to you, and here's the ring, and I do forsake all others, and in sickness and in health, etc., etc. And hopefully your tears are running down your face because you love the person so much and you're going to commit. And then what ends up happening, after the honeymoon, you get back home and they have BO and they fart and they there's a lot of stuff you don't like about it. And you go, what the hell did I get myself into? But you made a commitment. And so all of that emotion that you had is gone, but the behavior continues. And so you treat them as though you still have all those loving feelings. What borderlines do is they're wonderful as long as they feel empathy, but the moment they stop feeling empathy, they're horrible. So it's not empathy. Just because you have a ton of feelings, a ton of emotions, doesn't mean anything. There's no difference. There's no difference between the empty, feelingless automaton narcissist who just destroys people and has no feeling, and the borderline who has tons of wonderful feelings until they don't, and then acts out on that. You can't then retroactively go back and say, but yesterday I had a lot of feelings for you, so you owe me. Yeah, but before I cheated on you, I was madly in love with you, and you don't give me any credit for that. No, of course I don't give you any credit for that. You just cheated on me. You just proved to me that you don't love me. No, but I did. I had a ton of feelings for you. Then why didn't you follow through with that? Well, I didn't feel it then. You can't blame me for that. I can't help it. That's where the stigma comes in. A zero empathy. So it is true that if somebody is a borderline, they're going to have secondary psychopathy. They're going to be a secondary psychopath. And if not, they're not a borderline. And the only thing that can change is the behavior. And if you can manage to change the behavior, then nobody will care. There will be no stigma. Nobody will care at all what you do or what you don't do. So that's why I'm trying to say here, for those of you, if you're in a relationship, it's a waste of time to try and argue with your borderline. It's a total waste of time. They can't hear you unless they're doing the work. Unless they're doing the work, they can't hear you. And what you think, if you're a typical, human, I mean, you're a normal human, you get involved with a borderline, you're going to be under the illusion that they hear you and they remember what they do and they remember what you say and they remember how they felt about you. You're under that illusion. And so when you argue with them, because this is where the confabulation comes in. So I like that word confabulation because it's different from lying. Lying is an intentional thing. And don't get me wrong, borderlines are human and all humans at some point lie. But what borderlines do that is different is they confabulate. And as I understand it, narcissists confabulate as well. It's a great word, confabulate. Fable, right? It's a fable isn't a lie. When you tell a fable, when you tell a mythology, when you tell a story. The fable of the three little pigs, or the whatever it is, the turtle and the tortoise. I mean, the tortoise and the what am I trying to say? The scorpion and the whatever, right? You're telling a story. You're telling a fable which has a point to it, but it's not real. It didn't literally happen. This is what borderlines do. Borderlines, if they have borderline personality disorder, there's a good chance that they dissociate. So again, we're going back to having an identity. Remember that? So having an identity means that your mother responded to you and mirrored you and rewarded you for all of your feelings and behaviors. And from that, you learned, I exist, I have value, I have worth, I am an individual. And then you learned how to be disappointed, but then self soothe so that you didn't have to act out. And then you went into life and you won whatever it is, American Idol, because you had an identity, you had a sense of self. To have an identity means you remember what you said you were going to do yesterday, and you look forward to doing what you say you're going to do today. And when you wake up the next day, you remember that you said that. You go, oh my God, you have buyer's remorse. Like, for instance, just to give an example, somebody came over to my house. I'm getting ready to move. Getting ready to move from Australia, and I don't know where. I think I might go to Costa Rica. I don't know where I'm going. But I have all these surfboards I got to sell. And so somebody came over to look at one of my surfboards, and he saw, wow, you have all these? I said, yeah, they're all for sale. So he's like looking at all of them like a kid in a candy store, and he finds this one. It's a really unique one, and I tell him the benefits of it, and it's brand new. I mean, I just bought it, and I can't use it, but I've had one before, and here's how they work, etc., etc. And he picks that one, and I give it to him for almost half price, and I give him free fins, and I give him a free tail pad, and it's already waxed up and ready to go. And I say, worst case scenario, you can sell it because it's a really well-known brand, and you can sell it for hundreds more than what you paid for it if you don't like it. He could have picked any of the surfboards. He picked that one. He took it out. He texts me and he says, I took out the board and I'm really disappointed I don't like it. Can I come back and give you that one and take the other one I was looking at? And I said, no, I'm not a surfboard shop. It was new when I gave it to you, and now it's used, and now, I need to get rid of surfboards. He just had no awareness. He was so wrapped up in himself. He had, he was fine with it. But in that moment, he was, totally wrapped up in himself, and he had buyer's remorse. Borderlines get buyer's remorse all the time because they have no identity. When they love you today and they fall asleep, their memory stick gets wiped. Their identity gets wiped. They may have a remembrance of that they remember somebody that looked like them, had that conversation, and said that they were gonna, whatever they told you they were gonna do. And they can remember that somebody that looked like me said that, but they don't identify with it. So in their mind, they didn't say it. When they do things, when they're splitting or when they're acting out and they're dissociating because the feelings or whatever, for whatever reason, and they wake up the next day and there's either evidence or they remember that they did it, they will confabulate. Why did you steal the car and go to Vegas and sleep with 6 hookers and spend all my money? You don't understand. There was a meteor shower, and the aliens came out of the ground, and they'll come up with all kinds of reasons. I'm giving an extreme example, but it's not that they're lying, it's that they're coming up with a fable that will express the level of emotion that they were feeling. And so to us, it's an outright lie. That is a lie. That didn't happen. I have footage. I know that didn't happen. No, it did. I can feel it. Why else would I do it? They confabulate to themselves. They tell themselves something. Donald Trump does this all the time. Donald Trump, I believe, is a borderline narcissist. I can't prove it, but that's my belief. And one of the things is he'll say, many people have said, which means I don't understand the idea of objective truth, but a bunch of people said it, so it must be true. And it happens to correspond with what I want. So since I want it, I feel it, and all those people over there said it, it's true. Even though the video footage says something completely different. I don't care about that. I'm confabulating, and confabulation means that you invent a story that justifies the level of emotion that you have. You don't lie just to get out of it. You may be doing that as well. I think Donald Trump used to lie. What he does is he lies, and then as time goes on, he confabulates. He then creates something that meets his emotions at the time, and then it's true. He can change reality because in his mind, he doesn't operate from objective reality. And your borderline doesn't operate from objective reality either. Your borderline operates from the internal fantasy that they've created. And in the internal fantasy, in order to justify that I stole the car and slept with 6 male prostitutes and spent all your money, in order for me to have done that, it had to have been because of the meteor shower. The meteor shower and the aliens had to have messed with my brain, because otherwise I wouldn't have done it. I don't remember doing it. I don't identify with doing it. If I were to do it, that would have been what made me do it. So therefore, that's what happened. Many people have said, therefore it's true. So when you're trying to argue with your borderline about what they did, what they said, how they hurt you, they oftentimes don't remember. Their feelings at the moment don't correspond with whatever feelings they had at that time that they did it. And so they're going to confabulate. Or they're going to blame you. They're going to find some way to blame you, which could be a form of confabulation as well, which is in their minds, well, the only way that would justify that is if my husband had sex with his secretary. That would have done it. So I did it because you've been having sex with your secretary. What are you talking about? I know you've been doing it. I know you have. In fact, give me your phone. You texted her you said, I'll see you at the office. I know what that means. Confabulation. They're creating stories in order to justify the emotions, because if they don't, they start to feel crazy. And for them to feel crazy feels like they're dying. It feels like it's killing them. So the empathy that I have for them is that when they act out in those ways, they're really trying to save their life. Unfortunately, it's incredibly destructive, and we don't deserve it. We haven't done anything to deserve that kind of behavior. So it's a waste of time for you to try and argue with them. So because you're arguing with them in the hopes that you're going to change their understanding or convince them or win some kind of argument which will make them go, you know what, you're right. I totally get it. I see it. You're right. And I'm going to change my behavior from here on out. And you think that somehow there's going to be some argument that's going to make them see and understand and change and shift. And you can't do it. Even if you get them to acknowledge and say, yes, you're right, even if they have the corresponding feelings and they promise you, I promise you I'm never going to do it again, they go to sleep and their memory stick gets wiped because there's no identity there. And they wake up the next day and they're going to do whatever the emotion pushes them to. And you've experienced this as well when they've done really hurtful things to you. Like things that if they weren't a borderline, that would be like, the worst possible thing a boyfriend or a girlfriend could do, which would be, something that you could never live down, that they would never forget. The borderline does it. Sometimes they wake up the next day and they'll be like, hey, honey, how are you? As though nothing ever happened. And you're like, you don't remember what happened yesterday? What are you talking about? Hi. Because they're a new person. It's Groundhog Day. They've woken up and it's a new day. What happened yesterday doesn't count. Doesn't matter. Anyway, So I'm babbling on and on and on. I've said a lot of pretty much the same stuff I've said before, which is kind of one of the reasons why I'm not coming on this channel as much, because I'm just starting to repeat myself a lot. I do take questions if you have any. So let me take a look here. I'm gonna scroll through and see. Zabavrik says some nice things. Thank you. So if you're new to the channel, the best way to ask a question and to get my attention is to write the word question in all caps. So if you scroll down, you see some people are doing that. Otherwise, I may miss your question, because in these kinds of things, there's all kinds of noise, and I tend to scroll through just the static. So this person says, if you are honest with yourself, do you still think of your ex in your day-to-day? If I'm honest with myself, no, I don't. If that sounds like an unrealistic boast, it should sound that way. Because once you've been with a borderline, I call it, you get infected. And so you have to heal that infection. That's what the 4 things do. That's the one thing that the 4 things have done. And I've seen people who've been out of relationships for 10 years, for 20 years. They still think about their borderline ex. They still wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat. They still think about them with longing. They still have rage, which you should have. All those things are normal. I don't have any of those things. In fact, I'm trying to remember her name. Okay, now I remember it. I mean, it's that, and the truth is that when I made this channel, I started off this channel and then I did the 4 things, and then I forgot. I forgot about the channel for 2 months, and I literally forgot about her, which is huge. And then the only reason I came back is because so many people, the channel was blowing up. So I went, well, I'm helping people, so what the hell? I'll keep making videos. But no, I am being completely honest with you. I do not think of my ex in day-to-day. In fact, sometimes I'll go weeks. If it weren't for this channel, I would probably go months and not even think of her. If you want that, do the 4 things. You got to do all 4 of them if you want what I have. Thank you for thanking me for the videos. You're welcome. All right, what else? Another question, Zabravik question. Did you change your opinion on the treatability of BPD? I probably did. I think I did, because the way that it was being presented, BPD was being presented as something that could be cured. It can't be cured. So I don't think that BPD can be cured. It's incurable. But there are some borderlines who can manage their symptoms. But it's one of those things that if they don't stay on top of it, if they don't stay in therapy, if they don't stay doing the work, they will regress. So it's one of those, it's one of those things. It's similar, although it's extremely different in many ways, but it's similar in like alcoholism and drug addiction, where people can, they can lapse, they can relapse. Because the borderline, their instinct to split never goes away. So that for me would be a cure. A cure would be that their instinct to split would be gone. And so whenever I hear somebody who claims to have been a borderline say that they've cured themselves or they've been cured, I'm quite certain that they are confabulating or outright lying, because it's just not possible. But I totally believe somebody can say, I've done the work and I can manage my symptoms, and they can then say, I've recovered. They're in a state of recovery. I could accept that. But what changed my mind was, first off, it's really hard because some of the borderlines that have interacted with me have been, in all honesty, the most destructive, narcissistic, psychopathic people I've ever run into. And that's saying a lot. And these are people who, for all intents and purposes, claim to be all kinds of things. And they've been horrifically, just psychopathic and damaging beyond beyond belief. And so it was really hard for me to believe it. So I don't know this for a fact. I haven't been in a relationship with a recovered borderline. I have talked to a few online who have earned my belief, because I can tell when somebody's doing the work, but even that doesn't mean necessarily everything. And I've researched people, but in case any borderlines are listening, I've got the 4 things that I tell partners of borderlines to do. I'm not here to treat borderlines, but if somebody were to ask my guess, I would say I think there's 3 things. I think there's 3. The first one is to get into DBT therapy. The second one is to get into group therapy. Group therapy, by the way, is the best way to see your unconscious agendas. Because in a good group therapy, the group will reflect back to you what you're not aware of. You'll be projecting on somebody and they will call you out on it. And that doesn't happen in one-on-one, therapist, patient, because the patient is always projecting onto the therapist. That's just the nature of it. So the 3 things would be to go into DBT therapy, get into group therapy, and I believe DBT has some kind of workbook, and you do like daily exercises. The people that I've seen whom I believe are in a state of recovery are people who've done those 3 things. And they do them every day, like their life depends on it. And I believe those people are can be in a state of recovery. So perhaps my feelings have changed a little bit, but can borderline be cured? No. It's still, I think it takes between like 10 and 15 years of, hardcore therapy before a borderline can get a grasp on their symptoms. That's my understanding. So a few months ago, I don't know that I ever said that it can't be treated. I think I may have said it can't be cured, but I could be wrong. So Andrew, by the way, that's not a question. I was talking about borderlines. I wasn't talking about codependence. So let me give you my understanding of the 3. They're all related. Codependency, borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, they all have the same root cause. And we could put them on a scale. On the one end, we have the codependent, and on the other end, we have the psychopathic narcissist. And somewhere in the middle, we have a borderline who sort of goes somewhere in there like that. And I love this definition that a borderline is a failed narcissist. That's a good thing, by the way. There are borderlines that hate that. When I tell them that they're failed narcissists, they hear the word failed, and all they hear is that they feel like they've been, they've been judged. But it's a good thing. It means that there was enough empathy in there that kept them from going 100% psychopathic. So a borderline is a failed narcissist, and a codependent is a failed borderline. So I wasn't talking about you. When I was talking about infants, I was talking about what happens to narcissists and borderlines, what creates a personality disorder. As I said, in my opinion, I don't have a personality disorder because I don't dissociate, and I have an identity. So my mom did enough. No, I don't think my mom was borderline. She definitely had borderline tendencies, no 2 ways about it. But I don't think she was borderline. I think her mom might have been. And although she damaged me pretty badly, and my alcoholic father didn't do a great job either, she must have given me enough love and attention that I was able to create an identity. So you're a codependent, your parental abuse started from 16th birthday. That's not accurate. And that may be how you remember it, but parents don't all of a sudden become abusive. It was always there. It may have expressed itself in a way when you were 16 years old, but by the time you're 16, if you're not codependent, you're not going to become codependent. Doesn't mean you can't experience trauma and have PTSD. But if you are codependent and what you remember is at the age of 16, you started getting abused, that doesn't mean that there wasn't confusion, that there wasn't shame, that there wasn't dysfunctional love. Because codependent families can be really wonderful and loving and, on the surface and kind, and they don't yell at each other. Nobody got beat, nobody got hurt. But what there is that there is contractual love. So codependence, one definition of codependence is that your worth is based on what you do, not who you are. So there's no doubt in my mind, long before you were 16, there was some kind of transactional love between you and your parents. Maybe they didn't beat you, maybe they didn't yell at you, maybe you don't remember any trauma, but you were definitely trained that your worth was based on what you did, not who you were. Oh, you're such a good boy. You're always there and you do this for me. Something like that. So I disagree with you. I don't know, but that shows, Andrew, that you don't quite understand how codependency works. And if you truly are a codependent, I would go back and go deeper in that. It makes me want to ask you if you've done the 4 things, if you've been in therapy, etc., etc. Maybe you have. Merry Meat Man, that's great that you have an opinion. And it's awesome that you want to share your opinion. That's not really what I do. If you have a question for me, I'll answer it. And I'm not the only game in town. And as I said, I'm not an expert therapist. But just because somebody is an expert therapist doesn't mean anything either. Therapists, no matter how many letters they have, they can be really right. They can be really educated. They can be great about this, but they can also be wrong. I mean, look at what's happening in terms of the pandemic. There's a lot of controversy among doctors. They can be wrong about all kinds of things. But if that works for you, great. If you want to watch his channel, go for it. Yeah, let's see. Yep, you're right. Ivan, I'm not perfect, but you're right. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm just trying to be helpful. I'm not always perfect at it. Let's see what else. All right, I'm only looking for the questions. Ivan Jorison questions. So, healthy parents attach value to the kid, his sensations and outings of emotions by acknowledging or talking about it? No. I'm saying that when an infant is in a loving family, anytime the infant has a feeling, the mother will reward the infant. So this is why borderlines don't understand why you can't just understand why they did what they did. Because borderlines emotionally are regressed into infancy. So for an infant to be held responsible for crapping their pants or scream crying or biting you or scratching you or doing whatever it is that they do in their feelings, it's inappropriate. You can't scold them for that because they're brand new to this world and they are feelings. That's the only thing they are, feelings and sensations. They don't have an identity. They don't have anything else. That's all they are. So the way that parents attach value to the kids starts when they're infants. As they get older, so for instance, one thing that happens a lot, or I don't know what it is, I think I remember doing it at 4 years old, but I think that's pretty common. When kids are coming out of toddler age and coming into being a child, where they actually have formed an identity, they go through this phase of hating their parents. And little Jimmy will, when mommy doesn't give him a cookie because mommy's now giving him boundaries, to help him individuate, he will say, I hate you, mommy. I wish you were dead. Now, for an adult to say that to somebody is really inappropriate. You somebody, if they mean that, that's horrible. It's really destructive. When a 4-year-old does it, it's almost cute. And mom says, come here, I know. And little Jimmy says, I hate you, as mommy hugs and says, I know, honey, I still love you. I know. So Jimmy gets told it's okay to have his feelings. So when he's 10 or 12 years old and he comes home and the neighborhood boys were mean to him and tripped him, and he tripped on his knee and he cut himself, and he's really sad and he's hurt. Mommy will tell him, those boys don't know what they're talking about. You're the most wonderful. They'd be so lucky to have you as a friend. And she bandages him up, and dad takes him aside and says, you know what, son? This happens a lot. And, the thing is that actually my dad did this a couple times with me. You're smart and you know more than those kids, and they're just jealous of you. So don't take it personally. Whenever they do that, just remember that they're in pain. Those are examples of parents not shaming their kids for their feelings. The other way would be when 4-year-old Jimmy goes to mommy and says, Mommy, I hate you. Mommy slaps him across the face and says, how dare you talk to me like that? I'm your mother. Go stand in the corner. Then Jimmy is taught he's not allowed to have any feelings. Or if we settle it down, Jimmy says, I hate you, and mommy goes silent and gives him the silent treatment for a day. Same message. How dare you have a negative feeling about me? Then Jimmy gets the feeling that, oh, I'm not allowed to have negative feelings. That might kill my parents. So to answer your question, it could be that they sit down and talk to them about it, acknowledge them about it, but it's really just, whenever you see your friend and your friend starts to cry, you go, come here, and you give them a hug. You don't care why. They're just having a feeling and you want to be there with them. So less effective parents ignore this process. Do you have examples? Anyway, those are my examples. Let's see. Mary Meat says, I don't believe they can be in a relationship while they do therapy. I think that's accurate, because the whole point of therapy is to be alone in your feelings and not have somebody to be your fix. So, like I did when I was with my borderline ex, and my thought process, probably like yours, was if I can just get her into therapy, then the therapist will talk to her and tell her she has this and she can't do that, and then she won't do it and everything will be okay. And then I'll be there and I'll be her support, and I'll be sort of like her sort of live-in therapist and help her where she needs help. And, it's amazing that I thought that way, but I did. But the truth is that if they're in therapy and they're with you, they can't focus, because, the therapist is telling them to learn to have all their feelings and to not judge their feelings. And you, as the codependent, you have an agenda, and your agenda is to fix them so that they'll love you. And let's be honest, if you truly love your borderline, the kindest thing you can do for them is go no contact with them, because you're their fix. They can't get better as long as they're mainlining you. What else? And the other thing is that if the therapy works and they're in therapy, the end result is they will leave you, because they will outgrow you. If a borderline is with you, it means that you are infantilizing them. Because what does a borderline demand? A borderline demands that you treat them like they're infants. And if you're doing that, let's face it, you're with a borderline because they infantilized their feelings of worship onto you. Borderlines go from idealizing you or hating you. Excuse me. When they're idealizing you, it's an infant looking to a parent and deifying a parent. You think it's because they love you. and their love is the purest love that's ever walked, and it's not. If you, you know, I've had both. I've had real love, true love. I've been, you know, unfortunately she passed away, but I've had that, where I've had somebody who truly loved me on the deepest possible level that I've ever experienced. And the borderline, when I first met her and she was idealizing me, it looked like the perfect love, but it felt like cotton candy. It was like, it's real sweet and gooey, but it's lacking something. There's a superficiality to it that I can't put my finger on. There's a lack of depth. There's a flimsiness about it I can't quite point to. And that's what makes you start feeling insecure. You know, right? Even though you're being love bombed, there's this feeling of total insecurity, like this, you know, like this gossamer wing, you know, beauty that's around you. If you just touch it, it'll just shatter. That's because it's not mature love. Now the borderlines are going to get pissed because they're going to go, you don't understand. I love you with everything that I have. Yeah, that's right. Until you don't. And then you hate me. And it's as though your love never existed. So that's infantile. So if you are wanting your borderline to get in therapy, it means that you want them to infantilizedly worship you, which means that what you're in it for is you want to have that kind of power. You want to be a god. You want somebody to love. I mean, I can remember my borderline loving absolutely everything about me. You know, if I had a paunch, if I had gray hair, if I had, you know, something, you know, the stuff that's really not that great, things that are wrong with me. That's the thing I like most about you. That was great in the beginning. It's like, oh, holy crap, I can't do anything wrong. And then when they're splitting on you, you can't do anything right. Everything you do is wrong. Everything about you is wrong. So if you think that you're going to get your borderline into therapy and then they're going to be okay, they're going to grow up and they're going to realize, holy crap, the projection will the transference, because if you know what transference is, so in therapy, therapists are always on guard for the client's transference or their projection. So transference is when they take a feeling that they had for somebody else and transfer it to you. More than, you know, usually it's, you know, you're transferring your love for your mother or your father and you transfer it onto the therapist. So the therapist is looking for that transference. That's all that is. When the borderline is loving you, they're just transferring the love that they never got to express to their parents onto you. It's not coming from anything that you did. So if you get them to therapy and the therapy works, they're going to start to wake up. They're going to start to come out of their projection and their transference, and they're going to see you and realize that they don't even know who the hell you are and they don't love you, and they're going to realize, holy crap, this guy I'm with is constantly telling me what to do and he's trying to control my life all the time, and oh my God. And you don't know that. They liked it when you controlled them before. But when they start to, they're not going to like you controlling them if they get better. So the idea that you just getting them into therapy is going to make them love you is going to be the opposite. They're going to, if it works, they're going to leave you. But more than likely what's going to happen is, because you are a codependent and you're with a borderline, you are shaming them, you are using them, you are manipulating them, you are trying to control them, and it's this dance of control that keeps both of you in it. And so more than likely they're going to fall back into what they know because they have an unconscious agenda to please their parents, just like you do. And so them coming back and doing what you want and being the way you want, they'll actually be acting against their therapy. So the kindest thing you can do is leave. And if they decide to get better, that's on them. So I hope I popped that bubble that you're going to get your borderline in therapy and it's going to make your relationship better. I mean, even if you do stay together, what you can be guaranteed is a lot more problems. And maybe in 10 years, you guys will work it out and be the best there ever was. I honestly don't know. I have no agenda. More than likely, what will happen is it'll destroy it. And that's a good thing. Let's see what else. You guys are talking to each other. How rude. Looking for the questions. Don't see any. Guys talking to each other. What else? Here's one. I hate being a codependent. I want to fix this, but then I need to fix my childhood trauma. So, Victor, your need to fix is very codependent. Let me give you another way of looking at it. First off, get your ass to a CODA meeting and get a sponsor. That's how you work through it. But wanting to fix yourself is suicidal. What? Wanting to fix yourself is suicidal. Fixing somebody is at the very least passive aggressive. When you try and fix your borderline, you're not honestly trying to help them. You're trying to shame them out of their pain. Like, no, I'm not. I got tears going down my face as I love them and hold them and say, stop feeling that way. It'll be better. I'm going to fix you. No, it's violence. Wanting to fix yourself means that it means you want to make it go away, which means that you don't want to love yourself through it. When little Jimmy looks at mom and says, Mommy, I hate you, Mommy says, I know, come here, I still love you. So hate being codependent is self-directed hatred. That's what if you're a codependent, you were shamed out of your feelings. You were told that your feelings are wrong. And so you learned as a little kid that you have to kill the feelings. You have to fix them. And so it's too painful to do it. So you started fixing others. When my father passed away, I was very distraught. And, I was working on a film back when I was an actor, and I was working on a film, and in between stuff I would go and I would sit, and sometimes I would my whole body would heave, with sobbing. It wasn't like I wasn't thinking about it, just my body was just, getting rid of it. My body would heave with sobbing, whatever. And the co-actor that was with me, she's somebody that I knew from college, and she would come and she would just sit next to me. She wouldn't do anything. She would just sit next to me. She wouldn't say anything. I'm getting teary-eyed thinking about it because it was the kindest thing anybody could do. Everybody else would walk up to me and say, you'll be okay. Hey, look at me. Hey, come on, knock it off. It'll be better. They tried to fix me. And I'd say, please stop. I'm just having feelings. Can you just please leave me alone? Because what was going on is that I was making them uncomfortable. They weren't comfortable with me having all of these painful feelings. And so they wanted to, make me not have it anymore. But my friend, she wouldn't do anything. She just sat next to me while I stared off into space or cried or whatever it was I was doing. And at some point I said, I have to thank you because this is really what I need. I just need somebody to be there with me while I'm having these feelings. I don't need anybody to do anything. She says, you don't remember, do you? I said, remember what? She said, when we were in college, my brother died. I said, oh yeah, I forgot about that. She said, and everybody else was trying to fix me, and you would just come and sit next to me. And you would just say, it's okay, you don't have to do anything. You can have whatever feelings you want. I'm your friend and I'll just sit here with you. I had totally forgotten that I did that. But she said, you taught me. And so I'm doing it for you. She thought that I knew but I didn't. I had no clue what she was doing. But that's totally opposite of what you're doing to yourself right now. You want to fix your codependence. Now I get it. It's painful. You want to make the pain go away and you want the shame to go away because you feel shameful for being codependent. I get that too. But the other way to do it is to love yourself. Have all of that pain. Have all of that shame. Have it all and love yourself through it. My favorite positive affirmation, in fact, it's the only positive affirmation that I use, is from the tapping people. I'll write it down. It's the most valuable thing. And this, in essence, is motherly love. This is maternal love. Even though I have this feeling, I thoroughly and completely accept myself. That's the most profoundly healing thing you could ever say to yourself. And say it to somebody else too. Even though you have this feeling, I thoroughly and completely accept you. So borderlines, the thing is, you go through these feelings of utter hatred towards your partner. If my borderline partner could look me in the face without taking action or without judging me or without doing anything horrible, if she could just look me in the face and say, I really have homicidal rage for you right now, I would say, I understand, that's okay. You can have whatever feeling you want. I won't judge you for your feelings. But when she acts on it, that hurts me. And that's because I could say the same thing. She says, I have such rageful feelings. I hate your guts. I want to kill you. I would say, that's okay. Even though you have that feeling, I thoroughly and completely accept you. But when she starts saying, you're a worthless piece of crap, I can't stand that you're doing this to me, and she goes off and slices my tires or fucks the neighbor or ghosts me or, breaks up with me for something I didn't do, then she's taken an action on it. And it's the action that hurts. The accusations, the yelling, the screaming, that's the stuff that hurts. So you're doing that to yourself. When you say, I hate being codependent, I want to fix this. You're codependent for a reason. You can't help that. Your parents trained you. They trained you to internalize the belief that your worth comes from what you do, not from who you are. And that's a very sad thing. And anybody who was treated that way would become a codependent. Anybody who was treated that way would be in a lot of pain. Anybody who was treated that way would be incredibly needy for any love and attention and would get attached and would want to control people and take people emotionally hostage. Anybody would do that. So you haven't done anything wrong. You've been human. Accept that. The desire to fix that is only going to make you project it onto somebody else. You don't need to fix your childhood trauma. There's nothing to be fixed. Acknowledging it, feeling it, loving yourself through it, that's not the same as fixing it. It's something that will never go away. There's a pain that will never go away. Nobody can ever go back and take the place or fix what your parents did. This is why you can't fix the borderline. So this is your projection, codependence. Your deep desire with tears running down your face as you die trying to fix the borderline is a projection. It's what you want your parents to do to you. You can't tolerate that thought, so instead of feeling that, you project it. You walk around with this emptiness in your gut, and you see this little crying, broken infant, and you have nothing but compassion, and you're driven to take them on and fix them. That's called projection. And when you get past that projection, you realize that all of those times that you cried and were full of tears, that you were crying for yourself, for your little infant that you've projected onto the borderline. That's why in the beginning, somebody asked me, can you honestly say that from day to day you don't think about your borderline? Yeah. Because I did the 4 things, I became aware. It was really painful, but I became aware, holy crap, this is about my mom. That my need to get this borderline to love me was me finally, hopefully, the last dregs of my wanting my mom's love. And when I realized that it had nothing to do with her, then it faded. And then what I saw in front of me was a very sad, broken little infant in an adult's body. And I realized, wow, there's nothing I can do for her. She needs to get help. I can't ever fix her. And I realized that she didn't love me. I could see through her, the fantasy of when she projected onto me. I didn't turn that into something it wasn't. I saw it for what it was. So that's from what the 4 things can do for you. What else? Ivan Jorelson question, what are quiet BPD splits and how were they no different or, well, I mean, look, quiet means just what it sounds like. Loud is, when somebody yells and screams and throws coffee cups at you, that is not a quiet split. A quiet split is you say something that triggers them, they look at you funny, and then they get quiet or they pretend everything is okay, and then the next morning they're gone with no word. They've left. Maybe they left you a note, maybe they didn't. They blocked you. They give you the silent treatment. They go in and lock themselves into their house and don't get out of bed for a week. Those are quiet splits. It's the same message. It's fuck you. I don't want you. You have no value to me. The message is the same. So borderlines will often say, yeah, but I'm not like that. I'm not like them. I turn it inward. It doesn't matter. You turn it inward or turn it outward. It still feels the same to us. We still feel it. You're still telling us to go fuck off when all we did was want to love you. So that's the difference. Yuri Gorachev question, Mike, is it better for my daughter, 5 years old, to have contact with her BPD father, or should I fight for no contact between them? Well, I don't have kids. Here's what little I do know. The fastest way to create a borderline is to have them raised by borderlines. You've already had a daughter. She's 5 years old. So, who knows what's happened. When I tell people that, my borderline ex just had a baby or they have a kid, I get really stern with them and I say, okay, now it's time for me to get harsh with you. It's too late for me to do that with you because she's already 5 years old. So I am not smart enough or experienced enough to know what you need to do at this point. I can tell you what I would suggest is that, I would go to a lawyer and I would talk to a therapist and I would say, what can I do to get full custody of my 5-year-old? Because if she's an untreated borderline, it's impossible for her not to harm that daughter. It's just not possible. She's in therapy, maybe, but if she's, untreated, there's just no way. And she's going to continue to harm that poor little girl. You've got an innocent victim there. So is it better for your daughter to have contact with her BPD father, or should I fight for no contact between them? I wouldn't just fight. I would decide. I would say I'm going to go to a lawyer and get a therapist, and I'm going to do everything I can to protect that daughter. Or maybe the therapist and the lawyer will work out something where there's some kind of supervised visits or something like that where the father can't do or say something hurtful. I don't know. I wish I had an answer for you. Okay, Yuri Gorachev. So we need to talk about the word empathy. And I really wish that we could change the definition of empathy. So you say, I have a feeling that BPDs learn empathy mechanically. Look at those two words together. Empath means with feeling. Mechanically means with no feeling. So you're just saying they learn to have feelings without any feelings. Does that make any sense? As a means to get validation. So having an emotion, I was an actor. You know, I was one of those, and I was a method actor. So I knew all kinds of ways to stimulate and manipulate myself to have an emotional reaction. And, you know, I was good at it. Just because, you know, in the moment, if I'm playing King Lear and I'm weeping and then the lights go down, you know, I can turn the feeling off like that. It's not empathy. That was me playing a part. And I did it, you know, honestly because I want to give people an experience, but also because I want the applause and the attention. There's nothing empathic about that. I mean, that's actually more empathic than what you're talking about. So what you're saying here, I just want to be clear. You don't realize it. But what you're saying here is, I want my borderline to realize what she's doing and love me. Because what you've just said is that she's manipulating you, and they pretend to have feelings to play with you so that they can get what they want from you. What you just called her was a narcissist. That's what narcissists do. Narcissists, you know, create emotions in order to get your trust so that they can get whatever they want from you. That's what you just said. Whenever you call a borderline a narcissist, even though they are technically a narcissist, it means that when you judge them that way, it means that you want them to not have a mental illness. You want them to wake up and go, that was really selfish of me what I did. I won't do that again. It's a judgment. And I don't think it's, although I'm sure there you could find times when borderlines do what you just described. Your way of describing it really means that you can't tolerate the thought that they were actually mentally ill and incapable of loving you. Underneath it means that you really wish they could love you. And when you realize that they can't, because would you say that about an infant? You wouldn't, even if you knew an infant was manipulating you, which by the way they do, from 5 days old, it's been proven in studies that infants from 5 days old are manipulating their parents in order to keep them alive. They learn how to manipulate. It's the first thing they learn how to do. So you're saying that they manipulate you. All you're saying is that they're an infant. And you can't judge an infant for trying to survive. And that's what you're doing and all that. But what you're doing is you're projecting onto them that they're not mentally ill. And you're projecting onto them that they're not mentally ill because what you really want is you want them to wake up one day and love you. And they can't. They can't love you the way you want. What else? Mary Meat, Mike, did you delete one of my sub comments on your last video? I don't know. No, I didn't delete that. What else? Yeah, I don't know. I haven't deleted anything here. If it was on a past comment, I don't know if I deleted it or not. You know, it's you know, just to be honest, sometimes I hold over from my other channel. I mean, you know, anyway, I won't get into it. Sometimes something like that can rub me the wrong way. When people do it on my other channel, I do delete it. Because on my other channel, I want people to come on my channel. The whole point of that channel is to get them to come on my channel and you know, watch my videos and pay for my services. And when they come on and they give links to somebody else's services, it doesn't serve me, so I delete it. And it's rude. But, you know, on here things are a little different. So I don't delete things on here. So I don't think I deleted it. because I'm not, this isn't my business. I'm just, whatever helps. I mean, if somebody leaves a link that's helpful, I'm not going to get rid of that. Oh, let's see here. You said you recommended an angry borderline attacking me. I may have, but that's just because I wanted to get rid of the drama. So if a borderline comes on here, I don't need anybody to defend me. If a borderline comes on here and is abusive, I just block them. So anyway, no need to do that. What else? Sam Vaknin attacked my channel? I don't remember that. I don't think that's accurate. I honestly don't care if he did or he didn't. I have an interesting connection to him on my end, but he's definitely one of my all-time favorite sources for understanding narcissists. I think he's the best. He's not so good for a bunch of other things. But in terms of understanding narcissism and borderlines, I think he's probably the best out there. What else? All right, I don't see any more questions here. This is what's happening here is what I don't allow happen on my other channel because it just becomes noise and it takes up all my time as I read through them to see if there's a question that I want to respond to. Let's see. I just watched Rach's videos. He claims that codependency itself can be cured. I'm not sure I agree with that, but he may have a different definition of codependency. I think codependency can definitely be treated. And I think that that certain things about codependency can be cured. For instance, if he's talking about a codependent dynamic, definitely. I mean, as I've said, the one thing I promise you on this channel is if you do the 4 things, like your life depends on it, one thing I can guarantee you is that you will heal from that destructive relationship. If you want to call that codependent healing, go right ahead. But the thing that caused you to get into the relationship to begin with, you can work on it and improve it, and I could be wrong, but I don't think that ever goes away. I don't think that's ever cured. I think that's a pain that stays with you your whole life. And it motivates you, and it's the 12 steps are something that you do for the rest of your life. You never graduate. So I'm sorry to tell you that. What else? I like you guys talking to each other. Victor Shuckman question: as a codependent, can I have a high self-worth ever? I just want to reflect back at you that question. Okay, just imagine that question for a second. Can I ever have a high self-worth ever? That question is still, what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to kill the feeling you have now. The only thing you have is right now. That's all you have. And right now you're in a lot of pain. So if I tell you, yes, in 10 years, the pain is going to be gone, then you're going to try and project into the future and you're going to try and get out of the moment. And that's not a loving thing to do. When your child is crying, you don't say, talk to me when you feel better. When you're done crying, come talk to me. You go, come here, and you love them through it. You say, tell me what happened. Tell me, why are you so upset? No, you can tell me. Nothing. No, you can tell me. Be that way with yourself. Right now, it feels like you're never going to be happy. Have that feeling. Love yourself through that feeling. Stop worrying about what's going to happen. What the question is, will I be perfect in the future? Because right now I'm imperfect and it's causing me shame and I don't want to be imperfect. Will I ever be perfect? You don't have to be perfect. There's nothing wrong with you now. The only thing that matters is your behavior. Codependents can have really destructive behavior too. So you can have whatever messed up feelings you want as long as you act with true love and compassion. That you have to learn how to do that by working the steps. You don't work the steps, you won't know the difference between being selfish and being selfless. You won't be able to tell the difference. Whatever. Let's see, what is this? Look, you guys are talking shit about me in front of me. Tell me if that isn't passive aggressive. Tell me if that isn't codependent. Anthony says, Mike is right technically with a lot of what he says. However, he doesn't seem to know how to become secure. How does that help? How does that help you to sit there and talk shit about me in front of me? Anyway, I don't know what that means. And I'm definitely not the only game in town. I mean, if somebody else is going to tell you something that makes you feel secure, go right on ahead. You won't hurt my feelings. Take what works and throw out what doesn't. I know less now than I did yesterday. That's for sure. What else? And Anthony's now arguing with other people. All right, so here's what's going to happen now. I don't know. I'm this far away from doing something here. All right, let's see what else. Victor Schuckman question, as a codependent, how can I have a high self-worth? Very simple. Do the 4 things. Right now, you can't do anything. Right now, you're in pain. You only know how you've been programmed to operate with your feelings. You need to learn something new. That comes from action. The 4 things are actions. Do the 4 things. That's how. What else? Oh my God, you guys are just yelling at each other. What else? Ivan Yorison question. After the no contact, how do you know if you are ready for new romantic and how long is advised? I don't know. More than likely a lot longer than you think. I honestly don't know. That's something that you do with your sponsor. So you talk to your sponsor, you work your inventory, and after you get past step 12, you ask your sponsor that question. You go to a CODA meeting and you ask people in there your question, and everybody will give you their experience, their opinion, and then you decide. I don't know if there is a how many months. I don't know. I have no idea. I can tell you that for me, I wanted to get into a relationship right away. In fact, I wanted to just as soon as I was out of that, I wanted to get into another one. When my fiance passed away, I wanted to find somebody right away, and that wouldn't have been very good. So it's taken a lot longer. Anthony says he's going to block me again. Did I block you before, Anthony? So here's my question for you. You didn't learn the first time? If according to you, I get triggered and I do all these things wrong and all that, you didn't figure out the first time how to behave on my channel to avoid me blocking you? So you don't have any control over your actions? Might want to try doing something different this time. But yeah, I got to tell you, your behavior is very, you talk to each other, you say shit right in front of me, you talk shit about me right in front of me, you are passive aggressive. And, you might want to think about, does that happen in other parts of your life? Or is it just me? Is it just when you're on my channel that you get blocked? What else? Hi, Tamu. Nice to see you. Look at you, Anthony. You can't resist getting into you just have to get into some shitstorm with somebody. Anyway, what else? No, just Anthony. So Anthony, you say you're here to learn and grow. Have you done the four things yet? Which number of the four things are you on? Here, I'll make a prediction. When you do the four things, you won't need to say and do things that trigger me or get me to block you or get you to get in arguments with other people on the channel. Maybe you're doing the four things and I don't know it. What else? What does not really mean? You're not doing the four things, not really? You either are or you aren't. There's no really. You're doing the four things or you're not doing the four things. And that's really, we can end on that. That's what this channel is about. So I'm not going to get into any more flame wars with anybody. So I'm getting ready to end this live stream. But before I do, the healing is in doing the four things. That's all I know. I don't know anything else. People have come on here before and have said, understandably, they said, hey, Mike, yeah, the four things are great, but you know what? That's not the only way to do things. And, you know, it's like, and my response is, I don't know any other way. So if you want me to say that there's another way to do it, I'd be lying to you. Is there another way? I can't say that there isn't. I don't know of any other way. And I haven't seen anybody who has healed who has not done the four things. My experience with therapy is, and I've been in therapy for, gosh, at least we've got to be pushing 30 years now. I've been in 12-step work for 40 years. And what I've seen in therapy is that people who just do therapy and they're codependent, it's like some of them never grow out of their traumas. And others, they grow so slowly. It's like what? It's glacial, the pace. Now, I don't care. People can do it whatever. They don't need to do things my way. But when you combine therapy with the 12 steps, my experience is that that's when you really start to see people take back control of their lives. You really start to see that. And when people just do the 12 steps, what I see is they make huge progress. Sometimes, like for me, I think I was 10 years sober. Whoops, I just gave myself away. I was 10 years in 12-step work, and then I had a nervous breakdown, and I had to go to therapy. I everything discombobulated, and I couldn't function. I'd be driving down the street, and I'd have to pull over because I'd be weeping for no reason. I couldn't get out of bed because my back was locked up. I mean, something was up, and I didn't know what the hell it was. So I ended up in therapy, and then I did the two things together. My therapist, as it turns out, was also in the 12 steps, which was great. So what I've seen with the 12 steps is that you make huge progress, and then lots of times you hit a brick wall and you have to get to therapy. So when you have combined both of them together, you have this perfect storm of combination of looking at your unconscious and taking action. And those two things together, because therapy by itself, in my experience, lots of times, it will peel back the manhole and you can see into your unconscious, so you'll know why you did what you did, and okay, this is really about my mom, but you won't be able to change. So the knowledge, this is like, if I'm going to talk smack about Sam Vaknin, this is something that I see with Sam Vaknin. He has incredible awareness. I mean, on a level that's just so incredibly deep when it comes to narcissism and cluster B personality disorders and borderlines. He can go in there and he sees it so deeply. But by his own by his own admission, and maybe this has changed, he can't do anything about it. He can't stop. He can't stop his destructive behavior. That's what I see happening with therapy a lot. You can look at it, but you can't do anything about it. You don't have the power to change. The 12 steps actually changes. It changes the neural pathways. You know, the ruts in your brain, the tire tracks in your brain. It actually changes that and gets you to create new neural pathways, which is behavior, which is habits. Feeling like a victim is a habit. Throwing your soul away in order to please other people is a habit. Going about trying to get your worth by what you do rather than who you are, it's an ingrained habit. And so the steps actually give you the ability to change that. It's extremely painful because that's, you're rewiring your emotions in your brain and your nervous system. And it's incredibly challenging and painful, but the end result is your actions change. And so there are going to be times when you work in the 12 steps that you will be in horrific pain on a level you've never consciously experienced. And yet your life will be getting better and your relationships will be getting better. I can remember probably 5 years into step work, I was a mess. I was probably one of the most homicidal people you've ever, in terms of my feelings. There were times when I'd walk down the street and the whole street would just get out of my way. Literally, like if I was walking on the sidewalk, everybody would just part, just get out of the way. Because I was so angry. And when I was, working the steps and I was miserable, I was feeling pain on a level I've never felt and wanting to die. People would start talking to me in ways and say things like, you know what, Mike, what I like about you is that you're just real. And you know what I like? You're so calm. I feel such calmness and peace when I'm with you. And I'm listening to them going, I have no idea what they're talking about. All I can think about is just my homicidal rage. How are they getting that feeling? And the reason they were getting that feeling was because I was tolerating my own feelings for the first time in my life. I was, without realizing it, I was allowing myself to have all of my horrible feelings, and I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't acting out on them. And even though my internal experience was that I was suicidal and homicidal and felt absolute rage and pain and victimization on a level that I didn't think human beings were capable of feeling, because I was following when my sponsor said, do this, do this, do this. Literally, wake up in the morning, take a dump, brush your teeth, and then what? And then write your 4th step, and then what? And then go to work, and then what? And then eat lunch. I was just doing what I was told. Just doing one thing at a time. And I was so fucked up. You can't believe it. Maybe you can. And while that was happening, people would say, I like being around that Mike guy. He just, I feel like I could, I'd be sitting there next to a woman, and in my mind, there would be some woman in a bikini walking by, and you have no idea the shit that's going through my head. And she'd say to me, you know what? I know that I'm safe with you. Because I know you would never do anything to hurt me. I know you would never. And I'm like, how? She has no idea what's going on in my brain right now. Because it's not about borderlines. It's not about what you're thinking. It's about what you do. And what I had learned is I had learned how to have feelings and take what's called contrary action. That only happens when you work the steps. You can't think yourself into that. You have to work the steps or it doesn't work. So I don't know what caused me to think that, but yeah, that's the difference between working the steps and just going to therapy. If you're a codependent. What I'm saying doesn't necessarily apply to borderlines. Borderlines, I don't understand what they do. They go to DBT and I don't understand that. I've looked at that. That wouldn't do a damn thing for me. But for them, it helps them. So, do what works for you. All right? Any last minute questions? Any other? Yeah, no, some people just can't stop talking. Let's see what else. I have a suggestion for you, Anthony. Stop trying to correct people's misinterpretations of you. Just stop. Let people misinterpret you. The need that you have to constantly tell people what you really meant on here, you have to keep doing that. That doesn't help you. And I guarantee you, you don't realize it, but I guarantee you it really puts people off. It makes people not want to have anything to do with you. Just let people have their experience of you and don't talk them out of it. That's an act of love. Let me repeat myself. An act of love is when you don't try and talk people out of their feelings about you. When somebody doesn't like you, you let them have that feeling and you say, that's their feeling. I can't do anything about it. It's got nothing to do with me. It's an act of love. And it's an act of love for yourself too, because every time that you try and correct somebody else's misinterpretation about you, that's your projection. That's what you do to yourself. You're constantly judging yourself for every thought, every feeling, every word, every action, and you're constantly trying to fix it. It's your self-directed negativity projected outward. That's why I say it's going to drive people away. Nobody's going to want to be around you. And I'm sure I'm not the first person. Yeah, tell me if you don't have to tell me. I'm willing to bet, because I'm going to get off this, but I'm willing to bet in your life, people have said things like, oh my God, dude, will you just shut the fuck up? I can't be around you. My God, you drive me crazy. Because you can't let people just be. And of course, I can relate to that. All right, that's it. I'm going to go. And that's it for me. So I wish you all the best. I don't know when I'm going to be back. I'm really wrapped up in a bunch of other stuff in my life. And when I get back, I will be back. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. And let's hope we get out of this craziness that we're all in. Meaning in the world. All right, that's it for me, guys. See you next time.